The next presenter is Veronica Chapman from AISA, Ciudad Autónoma de Buenos Aires, CABA, Argentina. Argentina. And she's going to present the new workplace learning landscape after COVID lockdowns. You have 30 minutes, I think 20 minutes, and then we open to questions.
Well, hello everybody here and online. I'm Veronica Chapman. I work at AISA, which is the water company for the Ciudad Autónoma de Buenos Aires, Argentina, and some partidos of the province of Buenos Aires. I'm managing director of new learning technologies, and I'm so pleased to be here to share how my team and I are trying hard to lead workplace learning in this new landscape, seeking for what we call relevance. I will try to very briefly tell you what we are doing and why we are seeking to refine a relevant learning model. Some of the reflections of thoughts and insights I will share with you come also from my academic work, so I thank my team and my fellow colleagues at the university as well. Well, first, I'm so glad to be finally together, face to face, to learn, to share. In AISA, to give you some context, we provide clean water to almost 15 million people. We cover a total surface of 3,373 square kilometers, giving that people clean water, which is a very big responsibility because clean water before vaccines, before antibiotics, is the most important tool to prevent important diseases and mortality. We are more than 7,000 workers in AISA. And okay, I will just pass all this because we have so little time. And I just wanted to reinforce the importance to being here. I think that being together is something our generation will never again take from granted. So I'm very moved to be in the first face-to-face event after pandemic. I want to share how the journey of this presentation started. I started thinking about sharing our experience with the COVID pandemic, and some people in my team told me, okay, better not to, it's like bad news, everybody wants to face the future, we want to leave this behind. The only corona we want to hear about is the beer. And maybe they were right, but I'm stubborn, and I thought we should share what we learned because we are trying to help people, teams, and organizations to learn, and the pandemic was a big learning opportunity. We know we don't learn as much from our successes of the things we do right as from the problems, the mistakes we made, the bad ones, and the crisis. And this was a big one. So I think that sharing what we learned is important, no matter it requires us to think back about what we lived in the pandemic. In March 20, that's okay. In March 2020, Argentina entered a lockdown, and everything we experienced a blackout of everything we knew, of the things we used to do and how we did them. and suddenly we lost all our routines. We, as a learning team at ISA, started to shift gears to a virtual workplace model as much as we could, because we are an essential service and many of our co-workers had to remain on duty to maintain the service, this very essential service, as I already told you, that is clean water for all our populations. First, it was technology. We acquired virtual conference software that we didn't have at that moment, and we expanded the use of our LMS not only more extensive use, but also much deeper use of the platform. I have to say that for us, pandemic and we what we did for sustaining learning was a game changer. It was it was challenging as well as an accelerator of many processes. It was a very personal endeavor because we contacted people very close, but also a gregarious endeavor because we the LMS became not only a SharePoint for content or knowledge sharing, but also a meeting point. It was a place where we met, and that was very important. And we as a team could manage to be as agile as we were thorough in our approach to organizational learning in this context. Our learning initiatives evolved 100% virtual. The creation of learning-related material augmented in a 200%. We developed a new communication strategy. We started contacting people in WhatsApp list, phone calls, and also learning initiatives became important in company internal communication campaigns. We also finally worked very close with talent from the operation to support learning activities. This is something we always have done, but in this crisis we had to reconfigure many processes, and these activities were we had to strengthen these activities. Where are we now? Which is the destination of this journey? Well, after a very hands-on period in which we were working, as I always say as very much as an ER, no? Triage, assess, clinical evaluation, and quickly deliver the solution. We had time to analyze 2 years before all these new ideas that emerged from the crisis, from this very difficult situation we all lived. We got together and we decided to implement some future design methodologies. We decided that after leaving all that, we wanted to design the future we wanted for organizational learning in ISA. We worked in what do we keep, what do we leave behind, what we do not more want to do, and what to do less, and what we have to incorporate. Our first conclusion was that all we knew, all the scholar model that was very important in ISA was denatured. No longer it was seen as the only natural way of learning, the classroom scholar model. We learned that the new normal was anything but normal. Everything was new for us, and we felt we needed to seek relevance. Pandemic, in this sense, taught us that learning had not only to be continuous and permanent, in which we've been working, but also ubiquitous. in that learning could be a leading process to keep the workforce connected and committed. If we could do it in pandemic, we wanted to maintain this for this new normal. After having gone 100% digital, we could think of shaping the future of learning as a process merged to work routines. And keep these thoughts, but because merging is one of the components of the big, very important components of this relevant learning model that we are seeking to implement and continues and continue getting better. We continue developing different strategies to keep learning as ubiquitous as we could. We try to make commuting as little as we could for training, and we very thoroughly assessed which activities must go face-to-face. In this context, we design a continuous and seamless learning environments, including face-to-face, blended, and distance learning. With all this in mind, we started this relevant learning challenge that is no other thing than looking for a model of implementing and leading workplace learning that has impact in the company performance. So, how do we usually teach? We usually have this scholar model in ISA, even though ISA was very pioneering in starting a learning office that I lead, but also it was very difficult to change the mindset of a scholar learning model. Instead, we knew that learning process is very different. When our people started to learn something, they often feel like they are doing baby steps, but except it doesn't look like this, but it looks more like this. And when we help people to learn in organizational context, you have to help them to solve situations like this. You swim or you sink. Sometimes we are lucky and we can bring them lessons, and that's fine. But many times they just need performance support, just-in-time help, and this is very new from our learns from pandemic, because we work very hard with top management and the middle charges. We start working with leaders in different levels to transform them in learning enablers, because that was the way of merging learning with work for the job. All this model of merging work with learning, it's performance oriented, and the other component, other than performance, is purpose. We focused on that each initiative responds to urgent things, important things, but also meaningful things for our people. So this kind of approach closely connected to what is appropriate for a specific moment. We call it the relevant learning moment, and also something that is appropriate to a current time, and we think that this context needed this kind of approach. I will go further, and here comes the merge. To address this challenge, we first have to merge the structure of learning. We abandon a model of only training, only formal training, and we merged informal training, social training, and formal training. Also, we merged devices. We maintain face-to-face training, of course, because it's very important. We started to do much more distance training. We developed job aids for leaders to use in the workflow. We and we go on with face-to-face and distance training. Also, the third component is the learning environment. We maintain classroom training, LMS, knowledge management environment, on-the-job training, and networking. Finally, the most important thing, the merging of work and learn, that we think it's part of every job. In fact, every job has a component of work and a component of learning, but at organizations, sometimes we split these two components, and we do learning in one place and working in another one. So we developed this model with close to work learning proposals that are close to work performance for the person, for the team, for the organization, close to purpose, mine, my teams, my company, and making them in the right opportunity, which is the merge challenge. The role of technology was a key point in this process, because technology is now, as we see it, the merging enabler. So for social environments and connections, for augmented capabilities via AR processing tutorials, and also error risk-free environments as simulations, emulations, or virtual reality. I will go fast. So we developed this relevant model that is co-design, is flexible, it's more pull than push. And in a pandemic, we proved that promoted resilience in the teams, autonomy in the people, and commitment with the organization, as opposed as something we are researching in a more academic environment, that is conservative models that are one-way designed structures, just push, and generates dependence from the learning team. And of course, inhibitory models when the learning team has no budget, learning is a sub-function of the HR team and generates mostly disinterest. I will go fast. I will say that we had this model, so forget the relevant learning structure that we want, that is to integrate learning to work, develop learning within workflows, extracting learning from work, and aggregate in 360 degrees environment. For integrating learning to work, include activities to work with the purpose of assisted learning. This is where it's very important, the trainer of leaders thinking in a trainer leadership model. We think that every leader in an organization has to be trainer for their teams and generates team learning and promote learnability in the learners. This requires to develop learning within workflows. Learning trainers has to be everywhere. Training is no longer in a training center, but in many hubs in the training hubs in the organization, and aggregates in meaningful learning 360 environments. I will go fast. We'll put this. And I'll say that we develop an integrated platform model. We have an open learning environment with resources available for everyone. We have more than 60,000 hours of learning available from everyone to solve needs of troubleshooting or even to personal development. We also have a structured learning environment because this is necessary with mandatory learning and a traditional model. We have now a mobile learning environment with an application that can be used on the job. We expect to soon integrate into this mobile learning the augmented reality, because we think that this will complete the integration of learning in the workflow. And also, and this is as important as the other technologies, the technology of leaders, trainers that integrates work in the learning, that generates work as learning environment. I will, Nana, decide.
You have a presentation for 2 hours.
Summing up, we in the end think that has to remember that this feeling that has learners in the organizations when they face a challenge has not one right answer, but a lot of different possibilities, and we have to generate the amusement, the curiosity, and the discovery that organizations are able to develop in their workers. And learning has to be designed to by challenging experience to the people that learn, but has not only one way. You can also make it the other way, and if you won't get lost if you turn left. Thank you.
We have questions. We have 3 minutes of questions. Yes?
I have a quick one, just about, you're talking about creating that space for learning from the managers and the leadership.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you try to teach? Like, what is that? How does that work?
Well, first we integrated the training ability as a desired competence for our leaders from all levels. So this is a competence that we started to value in leaders in all the levels of the organization. Then we co-design learning projects with experts from the operations. They are part of the project from the beginning. We do a lot of meetings and we install a co-designing process. And then we detected some moments in the operations that are especially useful for learning, for team learning. For example, we have what we call the mate de la mañana. In Argentina, we drink something that is called mate that we share. We used to share, now we don't share, but people in the operation maybe they share it. And in this moment where the teams get together and take the mate, we provide some materials or challenges for the, we call the leaders that maybe are head bosses or capataces or supervisors, and they bring challenges to their teams, and they come up with collective solutions. It's a very extensive process to explain, but I don't know if the answer is
That's helpful. Thank you.
okay.
More questions? The only thing that I have to say is maybe it's not going to come the COVID. All this work, wonderful work, it's not going to be possible. Maybe you advance in 2 years what you are going to advance in 20 years.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is so nice. I think this is
Yeah.
the best thing the only thing that the COVID gave to us.
I think I'm an optimistic and I'm a positive person, and
Yes.
I always try to get the best.
Yes.
I think we learned a lot, and I think for us it was an accelerator
Yes.
because we had I was here in 2019, and we already had this model. We didn't call it the relevant learning because we changed the name on the process, but we already had the model, and we had the LMS and a lot of content, and we were fine. But for example, we couldn't buy a virtual conference software because the system policies in the company didn't allow it.
Yeah.
So that's why I think this was a game changer, an accelerator, and we have to keep the good things because it's easy for them to start disappearing. So we want to keep the accelerator pace. Oh, another thing that I couldn't talk about was that learning in this context got a chair in tables, in decision and strategic tables that we didn't have before. So this is why I didn't want to extend because I think the most important elements were here, but this is also very important because the place of learning and development in the organization very much defines what we can do. So for a relevant model, you need confidence from the top management and the direction, and you need budget, and you need a voice in some tables that learning and development not always have.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for everything.
That's it for everyone. Yeah.